Hi, how are you? Look around your life right now. Those unfinished projects, those unrealized dreams, those goals perpetually stuck in planning phase. What if I told you they're all symptoms of a hidden trap you've unknowingly set for yourself? Welcome to Inquisitive Mind, where today we'll explore the dark alliance between perfectionism and procrastination. A psychological cage that looks like high standards but feels like paralysis. Think of your mind as a precision instrument that's been calibrated too finely. Every task, every project, every goal must meet an impossible standard. But here's the twisted truth. This pursuit of perfection isn't driving you toward excellence. It's keeping you locked in a cycle of inaction. Your perfectionism isn't your friend. It's not your ally in the pursuit of excellence. It's a saboteur wearing the mask of high standards, whispering that if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. This trap has been building since childhood. Each time you were praised for being perfect, each time you learned that only flawless performance was acceptable, you added another bar to your prison of perfectionism. Let's dive deep into your neural pathways, where the marriage of perfectionism and procrastination creates a paralyzing dance. Every time you delay starting because conditions aren't perfect, you strengthen this alliance. The cost? It's not just in productivity lost. It's in the slow erosion of your potential, the gradual dimming of your dreams, the quiet accumulation of regrets disguised as high standards. Consider your last important project. Did you spend more time planning than executing? More time worrying about potential flaws than actually creating? This is the perfectionism trap in action. Your brain has become a hypercritical machine, constantly scanning for flaws, endlessly finding reasons why now isn't the right time, why you're not quite ready, why everything needs to be planned just a little bit more. The digital age has amplified this trap. Social media shows you carefully curated highlights of others' success, making your own work seem perpetually inadequate. Every perfectly edited photo, every polished presentation, every flawless video becomes another reason to doubt your own efforts. But here's the darker truth. Perfectionism isn't really about being perfect. It's about fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Fear of being seen as anything less than extraordinary. Your pursuit of perfection is actually an elaborate shield protecting you from these deeper fears. Think about the last time you abandoned a project. Was it really because it wasn't good enough? Or was your perfectionism providing a convenient escape route? If I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of incomplete dreams. The perfectionism trap operates on multiple levels. At the surface, it presents as high standards and attention to detail. Dig deeper, and you'll find a complex web of psychological defense mechanisms, each designed to protect you from the vulnerability of trying and possibly failing. Your inner perfectionist is like a demanding taskmaster who's never satisfied. Every achievement is met with, "But it could be better." Every success is overshadowed by the imagined perfect version that exists only in your mind. The most insidious aspect of this trap is how it masquerades as a virtue. In job interviews, you might even claim perfectionism as your biggest weakness, secretly believing it's actually a strength. But this self-deception comes at a devastating cost. Your perfectionism creates a paradox. The higher your standards become, the lower your actual output. Every task transforms into an overwhelming mountain of expectations. A simple email becomes an hour-long ordeal. A basic presentation turns into a week-long obsession. The neural mechanics are fascinating and disturbing. When perfectionism meets procrastination, your brain's amygdala, the fear center, becomes hyperactive. It treats the possibility of imperfection as a genuine threat, triggering the same stress responses that protected our ancestors from predators. This constant state of high alert exhausts your mental resources. Like a computer running too many programs, your brain slows down, struggling under the weight of excessive self-criticism and endless analysis. Think about your creative process. How many ideas have died in their infancy because they didn't seem perfect enough to pursue? Your perfectionism becomes a creativity killer, strangling possibilities before they have a chance to develop. the comparison trap becomes particularly dangerous. You don't just compare your work to others. You compare it to an impossible ideal, a phantom of perfection that exists only in your imagination. It's a battle you can never win because you're fighting against an illusion. Time itself becomes distorted in the perfectionist's mind. There's never enough of it to achieve the impossible standards you've set. Yet somehow there's always time to delay starting until conditions are just right. Your relationships suffer too. Perfectionism doesn't stay confined to work. It seeps into every aspect of life. Personal connections become projects to perfect. Spontaneity dies under the weight of excessive planning and control. The social media age has created a new breeding ground for perfectionist tendencies. Each platform becomes a showcase of perfection, a highlight reel that makes everyday reality seem inadequate by comparison. Your perfectionism feeds on these carefully curated images of success. Professional achievements become a double-edged sword. Each success raises the bar higher, creating an ever-escalating standard of perfection. You become trapped in a cycle where good enough is never enough, and excellence feels increasingly out of reach. Consider how this affects your learning process. The perfectionist's need to be immediately expert at anything they try prevents them from embracing the messy, necessary process of learning. The joy of being a beginner gets lost in the demand for instant mastery. Your decision-making becomes increasingly paralyzed. When every choice must be perfect, even small decisions become overwhelming. The perfect moment to start, the perfect approach to take, the perfect way to proceed, all become obstacles rather than opportunities. The physical toll is rarely discussed but deeply significant. Constant pursuit of perfection creates chronic stress. Your body remains in a state of high alert, leading to tension headaches, disrupted sleep, digestive issues. All symptoms of the perfectionist's burden. Your workspace becomes a reflection of this internal struggle. Endless to-do lists, multiple drafts, countless revisions, all evidence of perfectionism's grip on your productivity. The quest for perfection leaves a trail of unfinished projects and unrealized potential. The language of perfectionism reveals its power. It's not ready yet. It needs more work. I can do better. These phrases become mantras, justifying endless delays while disguising the fear that drives them. Time management tools, ironically, often become weapons in the perfectionist's arsenal. Planning becomes a form of procrastination, with endless organization serving as a substitute for actual progress. Think about your self-talk. The perfectionist's inner dialogue is a constant stream of criticism. Good work becomes merely adequate. Great achievements are diminished by focus on tiny flaws. Success itself becomes a source of anxiety as the pressure to maintain perfect standards increases. The entrepreneurial journey becomes particularly challenging. Innovation requires experimentation, risk-taking, and comfort with failure. All qualities that perfectionism actively fights against. How many business ideas have you shelved because you couldn't guarantee perfect execution? Your perfectionism affects team dynamics too. As a leader or team member, your impossible standards can create an atmosphere of tension and anxiety. Others begin to fear your judgment, leading to decreased creativity and innovation. The cost to your mental health accumulates slowly but steadily. Each unrealized project, each abandoned goal, each delayed start adds to a growing pile of regrets, all justified by the pursuit of perfection but really driven by fear. Consider your relationship with feedback. Perfectionists often either avoid feedback entirely, protecting their illusion of potential perfection, or become obsessed with it, seeking an impossible consensus of complete approval. The digital world's permanent record feeds this tendency. Knowing that everything you create might be preserved forever increases the pressure for perfection. Each email, post, or project carries the weight of potential eternal judgment. Your ability to celebrate success becomes compromised. Even when you achieve something significant, your perfectionist mind immediately focuses on what could have been better, robbing you of the joy and satisfaction of achievement. The comparison trap deepens in professional settings. Every colleague's success becomes another benchmark of perfection to measure yourself against, creating a never-ending cycle of inadequacy and self-doubt. Your relationship with time becomes increasingly distorted. Perfectionists often believe they have endless time to perfect something, yet simultaneously feel constant time pressure. This temporal paradox creates a state of perpetual stress. The creative process becomes particularly vulnerable. Rather than embracing the natural messiness of creation, perfectionists try to control every aspect from the start. Ideas that could flourish with organic development are strangled by premature demands for perfection. Watch how this affects your morning routine. Instead of starting your day with energy and purpose, you might spend hours ensuring conditions are perfect before beginning any meaningful work. The perfect workspace, the perfect plan, the perfect mindset, all becoming prerequisites for action. Your perfectionistic tendencies create a ripple effect in your organization. Others start to hesitate before sharing ideas or work in progress, fearing your exacting standards. Innovation suffers as the fear of imperfection stifles experimentation. Consider how this impacts your personal growth. True development requires embracing discomfort and imperfection, yet your perfectionism demands immediate expertise. This paradox keeps you trapped in a narrow comfort zone of existing skills. The financial impact often goes unnoticed. How many opportunities have you missed while waiting for perfect conditions? How many potential ventures remained unexplored because you couldn't guarantee flawless execution? Your perfectionism affects your health choices too. The perfect diet, the perfect workout routine, the perfect sleep schedule. These ideals often prevent you from making good enough choices that could actually improve your well-being. The social cost accumulates silently. Relationships suffer as spontaneity and genuine connection are sacrificed on the altar of perfect presentation and control. The trap extends into your leisure time. Even relaxation becomes another area to perfect. The perfect vacation, the perfect weekend, the perfect moment of mindfulness. The pressure for perfection prevents genuine rest and recovery. Your career trajectory feels the impact. Rather than taking calculated risks that could lead to growth, you wait for perfect opportunities. Each potential job change, promotion, or new project becomes paralyzed by the need for guaranteed success. The perfectionist's approach to learning creates a painful irony. The very qualities needed for mastery, experimentation, failure, and iteration are the ones your perfectionism fights against most strongly. Technology amplifies these tendencies. Each productivity app, planning tool, and organization system becomes another way to perfect the process of preparation, while actual execution remains eternally delayed. Your environment reflects this internal struggle. Multiple notebooks filled with perfect plans, numerous digital tools containing detailed strategies, everything meticulously organized, except for the actual work you need to do. The psychological weight becomes crushing. Each incomplete project, each unrealized goal, each delayed start adds to a mounting burden of potential that never becomes reality. Your relationship with success itself becomes complicated. Achievement brings temporary relief rather than satisfaction, quickly replaced by anxiety about maintaining perfect standards. The perfectionist's vision of the future becomes increasingly narrow. Rather than seeing multiple paths to success, you recognize only one, the perfect path that becomes increasingly impossible to find. The social impact grows more profound. Professional relationships become strained as your perfectionism creates unrealistic expectations for others. Team projects suffer under the weight of standards that no one can consistently meet. Your decision-making process becomes increasingly convoluted. Simple choices transform into complex analyses as you attempt to find the perfect solution to every problem. This paralysis by analysis spreads from major decisions to minor ones. Consider how this affects your creative expression. Ideas that could be revolutionary remain trapped in endless refinement. The fear of imperfect execution prevents you from sharing your unique perspective with the world. The physical manifestations become more apparent. Tension headaches, disrupted sleep, digestive issues. Your body bears the burden of perpetual perfectionism. The constant stress of unmet standards takes its toll on your health. Your relationship with failure becomes particularly dysfunctional. Rather than seeing failure as a necessary step toward mastery, you view it as evidence that you shouldn't have tried at all. This fear of failure masquerades as a pursuit of excellence. Time management becomes another arena for perfectionist tendencies. You spend more time creating the perfect schedule than actually working on important tasks. The illusion of control through perfect planning replaces actual progress. The digital age's emphasis on personal branding amplifies these tendencies. The pressure to present a perfect image online creates another layer of perfectionist anxiety, further removing you from authentic expression. Think about how this affects your learning curve. Instead of embracing the natural progression from novice to expert, you expect immediate mastery. This unrealistic expectation prevents you from starting new ventures or developing new skills. The ripple effect in your professional life becomes more evident. Colleagues begin to avoid sharing ideas early in development, fearing your premature criticism. The collaborative environment that drives innovation slowly dies under perfectionist pressure. Your perfectionism creates a unique form of imposter syndrome. No matter how much you achieve, you feel like a fraud because your accomplishments never match your impossible standards. This creates a cycle of achievement without satisfaction. The financial consequences compound over time. Opportunities pass while you're preparing for perfect execution. Investment potential diminishes while you wait for perfect market conditions. Business ideas wither while you seek perfect validation. Your personal relationships suffer in subtle ways. The inability to be spontaneous, the constant need for control, the unconscious judgment of others' imperfect choices, all create distance in relationships that should bring joy and connection. The perfectionist's approach to goal setting becomes self-defeating. Goals are either set so high they're unattainable, or they're kept vague to avoid the possibility of measurable failure. Either way, genuine progress becomes impossible. The impact on your creative process is particularly tragic. Original ideas are filtered through such rigid standards that they lose their innovative spark. The very uniqueness that could make your work valuable is polished away in the pursuit of perfection. The most insidious aspect is how perfectionism affects your sense of identity. Your worth becomes tied to your ability to maintain impossible standards. Each imperfect outcome feels like a personal failure rather than a natural part of growth. Consider the morning hours, your brain's prime time for productivity. Instead of diving into important work, you spend this valuable time ensuring conditions are perfect. The perfect workspace, mood, and plan become prerequisites for starting anything meaningful. Your relationship with deadlines becomes increasingly complicated. Rather than viewing them as helpful constraints, they become threatening reminders of potential imperfection. This creates a cycle of stress and avoidance that undermines your natural capabilities. The perfectionist's digital habits reveal a darker pattern. Endless research, constant comparison, and perpetual preparation become sophisticated forms of avoidance. The internet's infinite information becomes another excuse to delay action. Your professional development stalls in a unique way. Instead of growing through experience and occasional failure, you remain frozen in preparation mode. The gap between your potential and your reality widens with each passing day. The energy cost is staggering. Maintaining perfect standards requires constant vigilance. This hypervigilance drains your mental resources, leaving less energy for actual creation and innovation. The perfectionist's relationship with feedback becomes particularly dysfunctional. Praise feels hollow because it doesn't match your internal standards, while criticism, no matter how minor, confirms your fears of inadequacy. Your self-talk becomes a weapon of mass destruction. Every achievement is diminished by thoughts of how it could have been better. Every success is overshadowed by awareness of tiny imperfections that only you can see. The impact on team leadership becomes increasingly problematic. Your impossibly high standards don't just affect you, they create a culture of fear and hesitation. Innovation dies when people are too afraid to present imperfect ideas. Watch how this affects your approach to new technologies and tools. Instead of using them as aids for productivity, you transform them into another arena for perfectionism. The perfect system, the perfect workflow, the perfect organization, all becoming barriers to actual progress. The physical workspace becomes a metaphor for your mental state. Perfectly organized desk, meticulously arranged files, flawlessly structured plans. Yet the most important work remains undone, waiting for perfect conditions. Your relationship with time takes on a tragic quality. The future always holds the promise of perfect conditions, while the present is never quite good enough to start. This endless deferral creates a growing mountain of regret. The cost to your emotional well-being accumulates like interest on a debt. Each delayed project, each abandoned idea, each postponed dream adds to a burden of unfulfilled potential that becomes increasingly heavy to bear. Consider how this affects your legacy. What contributions remain unshared because they weren't perfect enough? What impact could you have had if you'd been willing to embrace imperfect action? Deep thinkers of Inquisitive Mind, you've now seen the true face of perfectionism. It's not your ally in excellence. It's the hidden trap that's been holding you back from your true potential. But recognition is just the first step. The path forward isn't about lowering your standards. It's about understanding that perfect action exists only in imagination, while imperfect action changes reality. Think about tomorrow differently. Each task becomes an opportunity to choose progress over perfection. Each project becomes a chance to value creation over flawlessness. You stand at a crossroads. Will you continue to let perfectionism disguised as high standards keep you trapped in inaction? Or will you embrace the power of imperfect progress? The choice is yours, but remember, a flawed diamond still outshines a perfect plan. If this exploration of perfectionism's hidden trap has resonated with you, join our community of deep thinkers. Subscribe to Inquisitive Mind and activate notifications to continue exploring the hidden dimensions of human potential. This is Inquisitive Mind, where we don't just think differently, we think deeper.